All right, fellas. Well, welcome to episode 203. Uh, yeah, that sure was a game that we're about to discuss today. Let's focus on anything but that. How was your weekend? How has your week's been? How's life in the States this week?
It's not bad. I mean, barring yesterday. Yeah, it's fucking cold in Chicago, isn't it? So I'm sort of a bit of a hermit at the moment. So just taking in all the football I can get. How about yourself, Adam?
Yeah, we've actually weirdly New York areas had pretty good weather, bizarrely, but I like to stand and watch the football, even if it's 80 degrees outside. But after yesterday, I think I'm going to be spending a fair bit more time outside, regardless of the weather, quite frankly, because that soured my weekend a little bit. That game yesterday, it genuinely put me in a bad mood for most of Saturday. Like it was just miserable. It really was. I know we're going to talk a lot about it, but oh god,
I'm starting to reappreciate the fact that games finish at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, so I've only got another like 5 to 7 hours of being annoyed, as opposed to an entire day.
yeah.
It feels nice that I just have like the dregs of the day to go, where I'm just pissed off massively.
I had to go to the bar after. Well, it's hard to say had to, but
Yeah.
there was some I needed to numb myself a little bit after that, just to take the edge off of the fury.
Well, you're going to be getting a 10-day break because we do not play next weekend, of course, due to Newcastle Arabia's Cup final, with their 18th choice keeper. Are either of you free for that if they call you?
That might be. Depends.
It's going to be Carriers.
The Pope thing was, honestly, if anything could have cheered me up, I didn't expect to be watching a Newcastle game, but that did put a little bit of sunlight, a ray of sunlight came through the clouds, because it was hilarious to just watch the replay over and over again, where it's sort of, you saw his mind work as he's like, okay, I'm outside the box. It's bounced a little bit. Then he's like, hold on, I'm a goalkeeper. I can touch the ball. Oh my God, no, wait. And then it's just superb stuff.
My favourite part about it is that Eddie Howe believes it was a harsh red card, which is just astounding. Astounding.
It wasn't just him either, was it? It was on Match of the Day as well, where it was like, oh, you need to factor in there's a cup final next week. Like, shut up. It's the most blatant red you've ever seen.
Yeah.
There's nothing else you can do.
It in.
Yeah, you're
Weird.
about 40 yards away from it not being a red card.
All right. Pierre in the chat. Big Dan Burn, 6'7", obvious candidate for goalie. With the way he's, playing for Newcastle and it's his boyhood team, it probably put in a hell of a shift, to be honest. Space Jam stuff. A 10-day break is exactly what I don't want, Mikey. Counterpoint, I think it's probably exactly what Zerbi does want, is 10 days to get this out of the system. Because we have been threatening to do this since January 30th or 31st when we beat Bournemouth. And yesterday we finally did it, didn't we? Brighton of old are back in town. 2.2 XG to 0.3 XG. Beat the ever-living shit out of Fulham from start to finish. It did not look like 6th versus 7th yesterday. It looked like 6th versus 18th for large portions of the game. And now we're not 6th anymore because we lost. So I suspect that a break is probably what De Zerbi would be happy to have in this next 10 days to give him a bit of time to recalibrate the team, don't you think?
Yeah, is it summer yet? Because that's the break I want, based on the trend that we seem to be heading in at the moment. Just in case you ever felt like Potter wasn't a wizard, he's somehow managed to impart his management on two teams at the moment. Like he's that magical that he's able to disappoint both Brighton and Chelsea fans at the same time. I genuinely don't think that there's a more aggrieved fan base this weekend, apart from Chelsea, than us. Yeah, bring on the break, frankly, as long as possible. But at the same time, like it's also not going to change. It might change a mentality, but it's really not going to change a lot in terms of personnel, is it? At best, maybe we're going to get Colwell back. But I don't know about you guys. When I looked at that starting 11, I was like, well, hold on, it doesn't really get much better than this. And they don't have Mitrovic. Let's smash them. And let's go clear. Let's get within a point of Spurs with a game in hand or 2 games in hand, and let's really do this. Suddenly, like our talk of Europe, albeit never say never, has now turned into like, can we stop the bleeding? And how bad is the potential free fall here before the players can kind of get their heads back on track?
Yeah, I guess there's 2 ways of looking at it. I think it's both sides of the coin, right? Is you've got 10 days to rectify and try and solve this problem, or I guess just for me a bad day in front of goal, which we've seen all too often in the past. But yeah, at the same time, you want to get back on that pitch and rectify it as soon as possible. So I guess there's 2 ways of looking at it. I think the Zerbi will appreciate the amount of time he's got to sort of maybe get people back up to 100% or get people back in the fold. So either way, we've got 10 days irrespective of what your prerogative is. So let's just hope that we work on that, and a few shooting drills wouldn't go amiss either, to be fair.
How many times have we said that, huh?
Yeah, a scary amount. Stephen in the chat over the last few weeks, we've really missed Lallana. Yesterday would have been perfect for him. Yeah, with Lallana in the side, it kind of forces McAllister backwards. And we're going to get us. I mean, I suppose we're skipping to the good bit, right? But for me, the McAllister experiment up into the 10 spot is not working. I hate it with a passion. Why can he not go back to the double pivot role where he was so excellent? I'm missing him so much there.
Is there there's a couple of things I think we should talk about here, but I do want to talk about Lallana as well, because I do think the fan base in general, and maybe us to a certain extent, but I do feel like we've been fairly kind to Lallana. Maybe that's the way of putting it. He is, I think, more pivotal to this side than I think most people give him the respect for. And yeah, when he's in it, it operates more efficiently. It operates differently. At the same time, I'd be interested in your opinions. Who do you switch out from that 11 if Lallana's fit yesterday? Does Gross come out? Because Gross he's your guy that's done everything, and he's been playing very well. You don't drop Caicedo, you don't drop McAllister, you're not dropping any of the other guys. So, like, where does he go back in? So we're not going to have to worry about that problem for months at this point anyway, I guess. And then McAllister, is there a chance that the World Cup has maybe inflated his self a little bit too much? Now maybe he sees himself as this, like, I'm a bit more, I want to get forward. Like, you've seen what I can do. I'm more of a number 10. I'm on the free kicks. I'm your guy. Let me do what I want. And actually, maybe, mate, you need to go back to doing what you sort of were told before, where you shined, because frankly, you're not playing alongside Leo Messi with Enzo Fernandez behind you as well with DePaul. It's a different setup. And what's his XG over the last 2 games? 500. And he's not. His finishing's been diabolical.
Yeah, he led the way yesterday, 0.6 XG.
Felt like more.
Yeah, felt like more for everyone. I think that sort of double pivot with him and Caicedo is so balanced and so well drilled, I guess, that I probably would prefer to see Gross in that 10 than him at the moment. But you know, we're not privy to those conversations or training ground sort of antics. So, you know, it's a second game in a row where, you know, maybe he hasn't finished the chances that he should have finished, and maybe not as involved as maybe we would have liked or have seen before. So I guess you're going to come under some form of scrutiny if that happens with a draw and a loss where you probably should have won both. So, well, I guess we'll go into the game in detail, but I think, you know, that these 2 results in a row mean there's probably going to be some added scrutiny on some players.
Yeah, and we've talked about it before, and Mikey talking about it again. It's worrying up front. Undav certainly doesn't look like scoring. So when Matoma can't produce his magic and McAllister can't find the net, we're then relying on 18-year-old Evan Ferguson, who cannot do everything on his own. I thought Kenny Tete did a really good job marking Mitoma yesterday. To be fair to him, Inky probably done the best job I've seen from many fullbacks so far. He looks absolutely gassed. He's probably still asleep now, given how tired he looked by the time at the end of the game. But I think he did a really good job on him. And we're seeing what it looks like when we're not able to produce Matoma magic. We're back to square Potter, really, aren't we? Where goals are hard to come by.
Yeah, and we've seen Matoma not be able to produce that in the last 2 games. And how much of a... Well, let's be honest, like his form for the previous few games, it wasn't always going to be sustainable. There needed to be a bit of a balance, right? Because if it was sustainable, he's playing for Real Madrid next year. So there has to be like a bit of a regression to the mean. I think what's slightly even weirder just overall is our XG yesterday was what, 2.58, which is, yeah. Palace, it was, I think, around the same, if not higher. And then Bournemouth, we were about 2.2 and only scored the 1 goal. Prior to that point, going back quite a long way in the league, I'm including here Leicester, Liverpool, Everton, Arsenal, Southampton, Villa, Wolves, Chelsea. We outperformed AXG in every single one of those games in terms of goal scoring. And now that's flipped on its head a little bit. So we just have to understand, again, classic Brighton, if you cast your minds back to next season as well, how much of this is like these fits and starts that we have. Like what is the real Brighton? Is it the games that we saw previously where we were outperforming XG and suddenly turned into this goal machine side? Or are we actually this side? Is it this side who doesn't have a real number 9? And if Matoma or March or Gross don't score some banger that we all talk about for a week afterwards, we can't score.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. It's just who was that a purple patch or is this just a grey area and we're going to go back? I think there's those sort of questions that do need to be asked. I think, yeah, we've been burnt in the past with the amount of, I know we talk about XG a lot and that sort of stuff. But when you see games like this and not getting your just desserts, I think we're kind of burnt from that last year with Potter and those sort of results that we had. So I think it's a very good point. It's are we the side we're now considering the purple patch, and this is the norm, or is it the other way around? I think it's up to the Zerbi and the players to really figure that out in the next few games. But for this one in isolation, God, it was frustrating.
Yeah, I will say one thing. I think we are, and it's tough, isn't it? Because a lot of Chelsea fans are very upset at the idea that it sounds like we're always berating Potter now he's gone. But I think we are better than the team Potter put out there week after week. But I don't think we're as good as the team that was flying in December and January. I think we're somewhere in the middle, right? I don't think when you look at this team now under De Zerbi, this is not a team that is going to put out 14 home games without a victory, club record, by the way. I don't think that we're only going to get 1 win at the Amex between 2023 and 2024, which Graham Potter did in 2020. I don't think we're going to go 3 months without a win. I don't think we're going to go 3 months without scoring at home. This is the sort of accolades that Graham had amongst all of the good stuff and all the plaudits he got. It's worth noting that we had some historically bad runs under Potter, and this team doesn't look like emulating that level of bad anytime soon. So I think we're somewhere in between, aren't we? And I think we've just got to find out as we go along. And it's going to be really tough, isn't it? Because come the summer, there's going to be wholesale changes again, you'd expect. Both McAllister and Caicedo will probably be gone. And we don't have any backups this time, other than Gilmore and the young lad that we've just signed from Sweden. That's
Ayari, yeah.
Yeah, Ayari that we've not seen play yet. Sure, they may fill in, but it doesn't feel like they're very confident on Gilmore. No one is.
I think he had a knock for this game, didn't he, as well? But yeah, no one really knows who he is yet, do they?
No. This team, just the one change, Undav out, Ferguson in. Like you said, it doesn't really get much better than that with what's available to us. To me, I think that's the exact team you want to have there. I think we spoke about it last week. The only thing I would have changed was have Gross up front and swap with McAllister. But yesterday, I'm not sure it would have made a great deal of difference to you.
Probably not. And one last point on kind of talking about XG and finishing that, and Potter, and then we'll shut up about Graham Potter. But the biggest difference that you do see here is, remember how many games we were talking about a year ago, 2 years ago, where we'd say it doesn't matter if we had, old school R9 Ronaldo up front in some of the games with Potter, we wouldn't have scored. Whereas if you put a half competent striker, with all due respect to our current players, in the side yesterday, we win that game 2-0. I genuinely believe that. And that feels like very much the difference between Potter ball and De Zerbi ball. And the other thing to say as well, like, we have struggled and we still continue to struggle against sides that sit in. And Fulham sat in, and Palace sat in, and Bournemouth sat in. These are our classic banana peel games. And maybe, let's be honest, like opening up the calendar a little bit and playing against other sides where they will push up a little bit more might be a little bit kinder to us, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, I think that, and that's just the last point. I think just going back to what Josh said, there's no doubt in my mind that we're better than what we were under Potter. It's just the comparison of the last 2 months compared to the last 3 games and what's changed. But I think you're right in that we're creating clear-cut chances. It's just not putting them away, and I think that's the frustration for this game in particular.
Yeah, 21 shots, 7 of those on target. Fulham had 5 with 2 on target, one of them being a goal. 65% possession, 88% pass success rate. Excellent performance on paper, was it? And it was just the classic smash and grab. Not much to talk about really in terms of, there was a few chances, obviously, some good ones. McAllister especially had a couple of really good opportunities. But let's talk about Fulham and something I tweeted about yesterday, pretty early days, because it started from about 8 minutes in. And De Zerbi even mentioned it. And actually, I saw a lot of Fulham fans on Twitter also take full responsibility for it, which is rare, and say they didn't like to see it either, and they'd never seen Fulham do that before. The feigning of head injuries. It was at first like, oh, that was a bit odd, but on about the 8th one on the hour mark, when it just so happened to stifle an attack or stop a counter attack, it became pretty apparent that this was a tactical decision from Marco Silva and Fulham to feign head injuries, given that I think there was 3 in a row that stopped play entirely, that there was no contact made at all to the head or even neck. This is dangerous, isn't it? Because if other teams start doing this, we're going to start getting into NFL levels of stoppage territory, aren't we? We're just going to start playing set piece from set piece. Like, we're just going to stop the game. It's worrying, isn't it? Because sooner or later, if every team starts adopting this tactics, it worked superbly well yesterday. It broke up play really well, and it stifled a lot of counter attacks that we've become really good at. If other teams take notice of that and take that initiative and do the same thing and throw kind of morality to the wind and go for the same opportunity, which most will, right? They don't care about morals as long as they get 3 points. It just runs a lot of risk, doesn't there? Boy who cried wolf, referees misreading things, it can just lead to some really, really tragic situations if all the teams adopt this sort of stuff.
Yeah. Obviously, I think I sort of, when we were talking about it yesterday as well, was just, you said morales go out the window, right? It's, 3 points is 3 points, too much money in the game to sort of think about that anyway. So, but it did it did stifle us. I think that a lot of the momentum that we build and those transitions that we build, need to have long periods of the game where we're in control and it's in play. Being able to break those up alongside a very sort of deep block and sitting back, it's a good strategy against us. Do I like it? No, I hate it in actual fact. And I think using the head injuries, if that is a deliberate ploy of what they're doing, which it seemed like it was, then it's bad. And now that it worked, you probably see it more often now, and that's even more dangerous.
Yeah, get some helmets on. It'd be fun. Get the old school like leather American football helmets,
like the Petr Cech helmet.
Yeah, everyone can have those. Get the Gavardiol mask. They can be like all put together, so there's no problems.
Can we not just go full pro wrestling? Get some luchador masks,
capes. Kane's
mask. Get someone with Kane's mask on.
Well, it's fine. We need to adapt. Yeah, I would, as much as I would love to go off on a tangent talking about officiating and bad ref. I agree. Like, it was egregious, and I think it potentially will start to become a problem. I don't care in this instance. We should have been better in front of goal. We should have won the game. We should have overcome the problems and the hurdles that were put in front of us. We were the better side. We lost that game yesterday based on our own lackluster finishing in front of goal. They could have gone down with 500 head injuries. We still should have won the game.
500 head injuries would have been something as well. Could you imagine?
Yeah, there would have been maybe we would have got to like 8 minutes of stoppage time if they'd have done
that. Yeah. Let's fast forward all the way to the end of the game and Roberto De Zerbi. We will go through other parts of the game as and when we just touch on them. But De Zerbi has received a red card. I believe that is a 1-game ban, not 3 that people were talking about online. I don't know whether that extends to Stoke. I am inclined to say it does, because generally these things do. Like, generally, if a player gets a 3-match ban, the FA Cup and Carabao Cup count, right? That's my understanding.
Well, isn't that the whole thing with Pope, right?
Yeah, because he's out of the... Yeah. So De Zerbi will not be on the touchline on a cold Tuesday night in Stoke, which is great for him. He never has to experience
He 100% intended that, didn't he? He's like, what should I say to this guy to get out of this?
Yeah. But he noted that what he said to the referee at the end of the game, and talked to him in the tunnel, and he said that he felt like he wasted his time at a meeting this week with his boss because nothing has changed, and the refereeing standards are shocking and terrible and just awful. And Darren England, with the fragile ego of a baby, gave him a red card for that, which is ironic given that Arteta is doing what he's doing on the sidelines every week, and people are thinking it's hilarious. But De Zerbi says something behind closed doors and gets a red. Do you feel how do you feel about that and that decision to get himself sent off? Because he must have known he was fully at risk. A lot of Chelsea fans are coming onto our hashtag and saying how like must be nice a manager that gives a shit. Do you feel that way, or do you feel like I wish he'd have been a bit more reserved because we really could have done with him at Stoke? He needs to grow up. What's the consensus here? Because it seems very mixed online.
This is who you hired. I mean, we talked about this when he first joined. You weren't hiring the mild-mannered guy. You were hiring the guy that was going to go into the tunnel after the game, give the referee a piece of his mind. I'm all for it. I like the passion. I also loved the quote that he came out with afterwards, where he basically said, I don't love to win a game like Fulham did, but at the same time, we shouldn't have lost. I want to play football the way I want to play football. But the fact that he pretty much said, I don't think he's a good referee was quite good. And the Premier League referees aren't good enough. He's outspoken. He's passionate. He speaks his mind. Like, I think that kind of behavior and that pride is good to instill in your players. Red card every now and then, it's whatever. Like, as much as managers like to think them gesticulating on the sideline and shouting does a lot, I frankly don't think it does. So I don't care where he sits.
I think that's what he said as well, wasn't it? That he doesn't mind getting a red every now and then as well. So again, that's the type of person you're talking about. So yeah, I mean, by all means, whatever he said, I'm sure it was lovely. So and like, yeah, it is what it is. Leading from the front, and like you said, it's that hot-headedness that you knew you were going to get with him. So if you didn't expect it, then I don't really know what to tell you.
He was very, very clear, in very clear English, that he did not swear at the referee. So I can only imagine the dressing down he gave Darren England to get that red card without a piece of profanity in that conversation. Can you imagine how just horrendous it must have been to see England stood there? I feel like it must have been just such a drill down.
I especially given his sort of. Well, by the way, credit to Zerbi. The guy didn't speak a lick of English a couple months ago, and he's already doing pretty damn good in press conferences. So massive respect. But yeah, I wonder if there were any, maybe no English swear words. Maybe there was some.
That's the loophole right there. Yeah.
I feel we're all aligned on this. He's quickly becoming the people's champion if he isn't becoming the refs, that's for sure. And fans around the league are already buying into his personality massively, which generally means you're doing something right, doesn't it, as a people leader? If other fans of other clubs can take time to go, sound guy, that one, like, he's good, I like him, he's got something about him. Pierre in the chat says he prefers a monthly RDZ outburst compared to a weekly Potter platitude. That's an excellent little sentence, with the weekly Potter platitude. That should be a segment on a Chelsea podcast, because that's something that they're dealing with every single week.
Might get a couple more episodes out of that one.
Let's talk the game in general and the player performances. Anybody stand out to you at all yesterday? Did you look at the team and think someone could have done better, someone could have done worse? Like, what are we thinking here? I think I'll go first. I think Evan Ferguson was a bit hard done by yesterday. He looked isolated a lot of the time when we were actually pushing forward. And I don't know who's to blame for that. I don't know whether that is an Alexis McAllister issue, and I don't really know. But he looked quite alone up top a lot of the times, and it stood out to me. And I feel like there's going to be, you can put almost any striker up there really, and if you're leaving him on his own, as and when we're pushing through the attack and everyone's kind of piling into the midfield and out wide and leaving him on his own, he's going to struggle anyway.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be no criticism from me. I think, like you said, he didn't have too many chances, but he sort of tried to make them himself and tried to make things happen. He had a couple of chances, but by no means was he in a position where he missed anything clear cut. I think his first chance a minute and a half in is probably his best one, and sort of, I guess, lashes at it, but it's so early in the game as well, just trying to settle down. I think you're right, and I agree with you. I think it's hard done by. He tried to make things happen, but like we 21 shots and bits and pieces. I think he only had a couple. So he just wasn't involved in the game. I think most of that was from the midfield and the wing play, where we couldn't really get Ferguson involved.
I'll have a go at him then. But he only had 24 touches in 72 minutes of football, but he did have 4 shots. 2 of which were on target. Dennis Undav only played about 20 minutes, came on the 72nd minute, had half as many touches as him and half as many shots. I'm not going to be the person here to praise Dennis Undav, but he did show that his movement was able to get him in the game a little bit more. He did look a little bit more wily, Dennis Undav. His finishing still looks like maybe he should be a left back, but
harsh honest opinion. Harsh.
True, he's shown he actually has. He can leather the ball in, can't he? But yeah, and maybe a bit of that was some of the tactical shifting we did around to try and at the end of the game, and the Fulham players were getting a little bit tired. But yeah, it wasn't Evan Ferguson's finest performance, but it was such a stodgy back line for the first 45 minutes of that game, at least.
Next question. Jeremy Sarmiento and Julio Enciso not subbed on yesterday, not subbed on last week, but Buonanotte subbed on at every opportunity for 20, 15, 20 minutes every time. Only just entered the country like 19 days ago. Prior to that, he got a back injury that was like talking about like major injury, like paralysis stuff, like when they said he went down initially, and then it was like, oh, actually, he's absolutely fine, no worries about it. What do we think about this? Because whenever Sarmiento has came on, he's changed the game. But Zerbi is obviously a big fan of this lad, this Argentinian kid, and he seems to have jumped the pecking order already. Would you have preferred to have seen Sarmiento come on, or just as an addition?
I think you might see Sarmiento as a winger replacement rather than through the middle, right? I'm not too sure. You're right. He's doing something in training, right, where he's able to jump a few in the queue. And the only thing I can possibly think of is that Sarmiento is that direct replacement for Matoma or March. But yeah, I don't know whether he's more suited to that central attacking mid or being able to hold in the central midfield. But I mean, I haven't seen enough of him to understand whether he is above that pecking order or not. I think we need to see more of him, but it is a strange one.
I'm glad you brought this up because I was thinking the same thing. It's also the second week in a row where De Zerbi's not really shuffled the pack a lot. He was forced into a switch for Estupinian, seemingly for injury, right? And then only used 2 subs beyond that. Undav and Buonanotte. Clearly he's seeing something more on the training ground from him than he is from Enciso. And by the way, when we've seen Enciso play, God, he looks raw. Like, he looks talented, but the kid looks raw. Buonanotte already coming in looks like he's got a little bit more about him. I agree with Craig that Sarmiento is possibly suffering from the fact that Matoma's been undroppable. I know De Zerbi did come out relatively recently say, I can't take Matoma off because he's so talented and so capable. I think if there's a game you take Matoma off, it was this one. He just wasn't having the success, especially in the second half. He did have a couple of cut-ins and was trying to do stuff in the first half. Hindsight's great, but I really would have, 75, 80 minutes in, just try something different. Put another pair of legs out there and see if that mixes the defender up a little bit. But let's also not forget, Buonanotte put the ball in the back of the net. And if it wasn't for Dennis Undav's big toe or shoulder blade, that was a goal. And it was the 2 subs coming on, Undav creating play in the run and putting a decent ball in, and Buonanotte with a comfortable finish. And we're talking about what an inspired set of changes this was.
Yeah, trust VAR to, for once in their lives, do their job correctly, right? Fantastic.
Yeah, well, we asked them to be more diligent than they were, unfortunately.
I mean, when it comes to Stoke, we're 7, 8, 9 days away from it because it's a midweek fixture. And West Ham is shortly afterwards. I suspect De Zerbi is going to be tempted to rotate a little bit just because he's got the short gap between that and the league game. I really hope we see at least 1 or 2 of those players start that week. I really hope we see Buonanotte or Sarmiento or whoever. Really, I don't really care. I just want to see 1 or 2 different faces up there to see if they can do something different. But it's also one of those things of, do you want to do it away at Stoke in case they get clogged?
I do think you have to, because we just don't have the squad depth. Again, I'm sorry, everyone. Like, you're probably tired of hearing us say that, but it's just the case that you can't just play these players constantly. So I do think we will need to freshen it up a little bit, despite the fact that it's potentially a very important competition for us. And the other part being, though, is that you cannot come back to the Prem and play West Ham and lose that game, because suddenly we're all running around like headless chickens. Like, what's happened? Oh my God. Like, you have to get points with the West Ham game. So that's the only reason that I feel a little bit more adamant that he's going to shuffle things around a little bit. Squad depth and the fact that the West Ham game is so important to us now.
Yeah, I mean, we saw how important, I guess, the cup competitions are to the Zerbi as well. I'm sure he's still reeling from Charlton, given his responses and stuff. So, you know, and Adam, you're right as well. There's only so much we can chop around here, because you look at the bench that we had yesterday, apart from Jason Steele, you're talking everyone 22 and under. There's only so many people you can, I guess, swap around. I'd expect Lamptey to come in. I'd expect Sarmiento probably to start as well. But yeah, we don't have the depth to bring out a second string at the moment, which means that we sort of have to go there and use a lot of the players that are going to play for West Ham.
Yeah, Jack Hinshelwood on the bench yesterday. Jack Hinshelwood was born in 2005.
He's got no reference point for the Millennium Bug. No reference point. Imagine that.
He's got no reference point for any. Like 9/11 is just like, yeah, it was years ago. Don't know about.
Yeah, 2005 it's not really okay, is it?
No. Existential crisis. People in their car driving home now, white knuckle. Like, what do you mean 2005?
Yeah, that doesn't feel like a year people should have been born. It's just that's it. That's back when you're in you're formalizing your own self-humanization. You're becoming an adult, not being born. I feel like we are aging ourselves a little bit here.
But like playing professional football, nonetheless.
No, there's no way. But turns out he might have his life figured out significantly better than we do. But Van Hecker could come in, right? Again, we don't know the status of Colwell, but that means you'd be able to switch out the centre backs. I do agree with Lamptey. Different game. Lamptey's not going to win any fans after his defensive shift that he put in at the end there for that goal. But a very different game against Stoke, right? He's not really going to be asked to do a lot of that. He's just going to have to bomb up the side of the pitch. So I think, yeah, you're going to switch it up. It'd be good to see what Ayeri is like. What on earth have we signed? And see if in CISO we can buff up those edges a little bit, because these are the types of games where you would hope you start to witness something that shows you that you can have these players play 30, 40 minutes for you towards the end of the season in the Premier.
Yeah, and obviously just succession planning too. There's going to be a lot of big clubs sniffing around, a lot of good players for us, as per freaking usual this summer. So seeing some sort of evidence of a succession plan will be nice, and Stoke will probably go a long way to doing that for us if we can get a couple of those names out onto the pitch for a long amount of time. Let's also talk another hot topic, because I have to listen to it no matter what illegal stream I get. That was a joke, by the way. I don't get illegal streams, but no matter what stream I listen to, I am constantly reminded that I think we are now 137 corners since our last goal from a corner. What is going on there? What is this lad? I can't remember his name. Our set piece coach. How is this man in a job? Why? I mean, the one good thing Potter did in his own career, clearly, when moving on, is leaving him behind, isn't it? Because if things are bad now, like he could have. I mean, what is going on? 130 odd corners with no goal, nothing.
We were very close to one yesterday without Dunk heading it wide. So you can see them trying to mix it up as well. You've seen a number of different short corners and a few different passes. So everyone knows it's an issue. It's this huge elephant in the room where we should be doing better. As for who's coaching it, God knows. But I don't know. They're clearly trying to mix things up as well. The amount of times I've watched that corner just hit the first man is just mind-numbingly frustrating. Given how good we know Gross and March can put a ball in, it's so annoying that they cannot do it from a corner. So that's the main thing, and trying to switch it up with short corners and putting it in from an area where we know they're accomplished and can put in a good cross seems like the best bet at the moment. But yeah, that we shouldn't ignore the fact that we missed a free header yesterday that would have changed that perspective entirely.
Yeah. So against Palace, we had 6 corners and 25 crosses. And against Fulham, we had 10 corners and 21 crosses. I can't do the math that quickly in my head, but that looks like 16 corners over the last 2 games and 46 crosses. Yeah, something's not quite working there, is it? And let's not forget Solly March's corner against Palace that just went off. Yeah, there's some. I don't know what's happened. You know, the answer to all our problems was sat on Fulham's bench yesterday. Bring back Shane Duffy. Let's get a specialist, old school, like when Stoke used to play Rory Delap for throws. Just bring Duffy on for a corner in the 80th minute. Bring it back, because clearly that used to work. We had no problems when it was Duncan Duffy. I visualize his face in my mind wheeling away after scoring a corner, and I don't remember what that feels like or looks like anymore.
Yeah, our crossing ability has never been great, Mikey. Yeah, I think that's why you see Estepinian and Mitoma and Solly March and, when applicable, Joel Veltman and or Tarak Lamptey drill that ball low and hard across the box and not high as a regular cross. Mainly because generally, pre-Evan Ferguson, we had no one who could ever reach the ball anyway. And 2, because we are so poor at converting crosses of that that we're now just going to the lowest common denominator and going full FIFA scumbag and smashing a ball into the middle and seeing what we can get, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, if you launch a high cross, there's only one person in there even now. But pre Evan Ferguson, there's no chance. So yeah, it's a number of crosses. We can tell from the Zerbi way is just getting to the byline, and a low cross will do it. But something isn't working regardless. The corners especially it's outrageous.
It's indefensible, and like we can use the excuse of lack of height for the crosses. I agree, but I mean, for 72 minutes yesterday, for any corner that you have Lewis Dunk, Adam Webster, and Evan Ferguson in the box. What are you doing? Heaven forbid we've got Tim Ream, a statue of a man. Come on.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Mikey in the chat saying Dan Burn, he once scored from a corner. The fact that he scored once from a corner, Mikey, at 7'4" is a problem. I think that's an issue in and of itself that may be reflective of our issues in general from set pieces. Speaking of set pieces, we were awfully close at the end there, weren't we, Alexis McAllister, to an equaliser. One thing he does have in his locker is belting free kicks.
I thought it was him. I thought it was in. It was actually at the distance where I was sort of hoping Lewis Dunk was going to knuckleball it. But
Can you imagine?
Yeah, that I was expecting that, but yeah, it was very close, wasn't it? And he sort of tricked the keeper. I think everyone was expecting a curler into the left-hand side, and he went to the right. Yeah, very, very, very close. But again, like we're just, for all the opportunities, all the attempts, the fact that we had the ball in the net twice during that game and it was both ruled out for offside, the fact that it all came down to hoping Alexis McAllister was going to punt it into the top right-hand corner in the 90 whatever minute. This is more of an indictment on what happened in the previous 94 minutes.
Man of the match, Craig.
An unenviable task.
Yeah,
going first.
Yeah, appreciate that. I mean, it's slim pickings, right? There's not really too much to go on. I think everyone just had a very drab game.
Fulham's medics, Mike is put. Oh yeah, that's.
Yeah. I mean, God knows. Well, who do you pick? I think it's a wider question because I feel like I'm trying to scumbag my way out of it. But just like, who had a better game than anyone else?
No one.
Yeah,
no one deserves a man of the match. The sponsor ggets their money back for the game.
Just free advertising.
Sorry about that. I honestly don't know. I'm just looking at the list off screen here, and
it's not anyone. I genuinely don't think it's anyone. I don't think anyone deserves it.
I feel horrible about it because like I'm just holding up the entire podcast, but like I don't know. I think it would be between March and Estepinian for me because I just think at least they had something about them. March was trying to make things happen. Granted, he was back in Lewis when he scored his goal. But yeah, it'd be one of those two. I can't really give it to anyone without, I guess, some permutations or something like that, some asterisks next to their name. But those were the only two that I thought actually had an okay game or a passable game.
Adam?
No, I honestly, I refuse to give it to anyone. Mike has also mentioned Dunk. I think you could have got away with saying Dunk for 87 minutes. His positioning at the end was disastrous. He was playing Solomon 10 yards onside because Veltman pushed up. He didn't notice. Obviously, Veltman at that point had moved in from being the right back. Lamptey had come on. Webster came off. Veltman came into centre back. They were not on the same page. You can blame Veltman. You can blame Lamptey. You can blame Dunk. I'm going to blame all of them. It was a disaster. No one deserves man of the match.
Yeah, that's my hang up on Dunk as well. I mean, you just articulated it perfectly. I don't have anyone either. Like, I don't have anyone. I'm not giving him man of the match because that's just laughable. But I will say it was nice to see how assured Sanchez looked yesterday and some of the very quick distribution he made when he did collect crosses of the ball, which he collected all of them this time.
First time asking. Was he? Yeah. Did he have a nap partway through the game?
He may as well have, because there really wasn't a great deal he could have done about the goal either, because it really was just a belting shot. There really wasn't much he could have done to save it either. But I thought he looked really assured, and I thought the distribution looked very good again. He just looked very, very chilled out. Mikey wants to give it to VAR, had their best game for ages. I can't give it to VAR, unfortunately, just on general principle of them always being pricks forever and ever.
Jay's saying Purvis is, but my problem with Estepinian is I'm still annoyed about the fact not too far into the game he was in the box and he missed Solly March's run, which was a tap in, and he tried to overplay it and it ended up just getting nowhere. And that really, I know it was just one singular moment in the game, but you look back on it, you're like, oh God, if you just made he had two runners in the box and he didn't pick either of them. That I don't think it was his finest game even before the injury either. But it wasn't a good game for picking man of the match. I don't remember the last time none of us have really been able to pick someone, right? I can't think of that, which really sums the bloody game up, doesn't it?
Yeah, just a very bad day in the office. Pierre, actually, I have a Toyota, not a Nissan. So your point still stands, though, because they're both Japanese. So fair enough to you. But that's about it, really. The sooner we can get off this topic, the better, honestly. I've not been looking forward to this all day. It probably reflects in the tone of voice that I've had the entire time.
I didn't want to watch the highlights after watching it. I didn't. I was like, I can't believe I have to do this.
I watched them this morning and just the disdain. So, yeah, I'm half glad this is over as well, actually.
Let's talk Stoke. Which is an odd thing.
Relieved to talk about Stoke.
They've been in fine form of late, which is quite surprising in Championship because it seems like no one can get into good form as of late. But they are sitting 19th in the table, and really it's due to the absolute shocking start to the season they had because as of late they've been a lot better since they beat Hartlepool in the FA Cup, battered them, They lost to high-flying Sheffield United. Then they destroyed Reading, beat Stevenage in the FA Cup, lost to Luton, drew with Hull, battered Huddersfield last week, and then lost to Blackpool. So no one knows who they are because they're beating teams that are below them and then losing to teams that are below them. But it seems to me that they are still the Stoke of old. Whenever I see them on Soccer Special and stuff being talked about, it's just long ball, hoof ball nonsense. Obviously, we've talked about the rotation that we want to see next weekend or next Tuesday, whenever it is.
Yeah,
what
28th. Yeah.
Yeah,
28th. 28th. Hold on. When is that? Oh yeah, so we've got a whole. It is 10 days. Tuesday after next. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Just talk to me about it. Who do you want to see starting? We've talked about the fact that we want to see rotation. So we've got about 8 young wingers and attackers we've got on the bench every other day. Who do you want to see getting those opportunities? Who do you want to give a rest to make sure that they're ready for West Ham? Who do you drop?
Can I throw in a controversial opinion?
Yeah.
Look, I would like the tactics to be different. And again, I told you it was controversial. I also could have added potentially stupid. I want us to play 2 up front, and I want Undav and Ferguson to play together. Because
little and large, the old school against Stoke.
Bring it back.
4-4-2.
Yeah, let's protect the V, as Dyche says. I'm not sure about that phrasing. The thing is, like, we need to get the confidence back in a striker, and because Ferguson needs a goal now, and Dav, I don't know if he's ever had the confidence. I want to throw as much at the problem as possible. Let's put them both on, and let's get them a goal against Stoke, so that when we start one of them in the Premier League next game against West Ham, they're not coming into it completely cold and downtrodden when, let's say we're playing one of them for 70, 80 minutes. We bring Undav on for a token 10 minutes and we get nowhere. The other part is it might be decent to also semi-experiment with a plan B, whereby we don't play the 4-2-3-1 against sides that sit very deep, and we have a slightly different option. So I would like to see Ayeri. I would like to see the Latin contingent play a little bit more. Let's mix up the back line a little bit. But for me, I want to get a striker on the board.
Yeah, I think to an extent, so we can't really pay 5 because we don't have too many centre backs. So it's just that's quite difficult. But yeah, I think having 2 up front, you could do a 5-3-2, or you can just go full on Mike Bassett, couldn't you? And just do that. But I mean, either way, I think you're right. We need to have a plan B. It's just, is this the right time? Or do we struggle with that plan B, eventually lose to Stoke, and all of a sudden we're pretty downtrodden on our luck and our confidence, and you go into West Ham off like 1 draw in 3 games? There's that toss up to me is, do you stick with the tried and trusted and try and overload a team that is in the league below you? That 4-2-3-1 should be good enough to beat Stoke, right? And I think we can all agree on that. It's just, do we experiment, and do we take a gamble in that respect? I'd like to see, for personnel, I'd like to see Lamptey come in. I'd like to see Van Hecker come in. I'd like to see Sarmiento start. Potentially on the wing, and I would still like the double pivot to be Caicedo and McAllister. I want them to be in that position. It depends on whether we're willing to do that.
I want to see the Ayari kid.
Yeah. No other requests, just him.
For 90 minutes though.
Especially if we're gonna really commit to not playing Alexis at the pivot role anymore, and we're actually going to do this and decide to play him as the next Messi at the number 10 role, which I think is a mistake, Roberto. I'm telling you now. But you do you. You're paid millions of pounds, and I'm not. So I would like to see Ayari in there for Gross. like if you're going to play him there and see what he can do next to Caicedo, and then take Caicedo off at half time or 60 minutes in or something, or bring him on with half an hour. You saw the impact he made the other day when he came on against Bournemouth. The bloke took control of the game within 25 minutes and won us it. So Pierre in the chat, maybe having Mitoma benched. I agree with that too, for sure. I would bench him.
Yeah.
I think he needs a rest. 10 days is ample enough time, right? The professional athletes, I know that. But I think it would be good for him to just sit one out and just get himself some time off and watch the game from the bench. That's what he wants to do. And Craig, like you, I would like to see Sarmiento start on that side. I would like to see Buonanotte get a chance for sure. It just depends on where they want to put him. But yeah, I would just throw them all in there. See what happens. Undav, Enciso, Sarmiento, Buonanotte. Fuck it. Just throw them all in.
The whole contingent.
Yeah.
Well, what's kind of funny is Stoke in their last few games of recent memory have also been playing a 4-2-3-1. I think they've got Dwight Gale up top. Which,
I was just looking through their team. Do you remember Nick Powell? What a time!
Yeah.
Like
they've got Phil Jagielka. Well, what is this? Yeah,
there's a few in there. Liam Delap, you got Will Smallbone as well. There's a couple of decent players in there, but I think you should have more than enough to do it. I think it's if you do make wholesale changes, are we happy with it maybe going wrong and not going through? That would be my concern.
I agree with pretty much everything that you said, and by the way, I think the Matoma point's a very, very good one. Let's also have him on the bench, obviously, but have him as that player that can come on if it's not going how we want it to. 60, 65 minutes in, great. Bring on Matoma, who's just had 10 days off, and they're not going to know what hit him. And that, again, might be the confidence boost you need. My only slight counterpoint to the idea of like, well, let's stick with what we know and what we're comfortable with and what we know what works. We played 4-2-3-1 against Charlton. So
I knew you were going to say that. I knew it was coming.
yeah, it was inevitable. Yeah, so you never know what's going to happen in these things. So we could play 4-2-3-1, start our best 11, and still come up in the Charlton game. Someone shanks over the bar on penalties. I guess it would be a replay in this instance, right?
Yes. Yeah, I think it would be. It's going to be interesting to see what he throws out there. Obviously, big question marks between now and then 10-day break. One thing to be keeping an eye out for all fans is Estepinia's injury and what that amounts to. Zerbi said it's not serious, but he has gone in for a scan on his hamstring today. So what does that mean?
Question, who's our backup left back?
Pass.
Pascal Gross yesterday.
double it and pass it on to the next person. Lamptey, probably, right? That's what he did yesterday.
He was there for a bit.
Yeah. Okay. Let's hope he's not injured for long.
And I mean, once again, we're back to the squad depth issue, aren't we? All right. Well, 10 days from now is Stoke. We'll probably try and record an episode on that, just on its own, because it'll have been 10 days if we've got good, ample free time. And then West Ham after that, which we'll talk about once we get after Stoke. So we'll kind of save that conversation for post-Stoke pod.
God knows when we're going to play the. By the way, sorry to cut you off. The Newcastle and Palace games.
Well, they've requested the Palace game to be brought forward 24 hours, haven't they?
But we've got no real idea if, as and when these are properly going to happen. It just seems to be consistently moved around in perpetuity. So, we might be in a weird position come a few weeks. We've got no idea where our real league position actually is because we've got like 6 points hypothetically like existing in the ether.
Yeah, we've got 2 games in hand on just about every team around us again now. With the poor results we've been getting, we're now unable to catch Spurs, for example. But Fulham's win against us and all that sort of stuff can really go by the wayside if we can take control of our games in hand. It really means nothing in the grand scheme of things. Everything's still within our control. I say that we've got like 15 games left to go anyway. But we'll be back next week then for Stoke chat. What a thrilling time for us. The FA Cup away at Stoke. I was tempted to go to it. I'm not going to it because my dad doesn't want to, and I'm not going on my own. So that's the end of that conversation. But we'll be back. Do you have anything to cover before we drop off?
Nothing. I mean, the only thing I will say is that even though we all sound downhearted and it was a horrible, horrible game that I hate, the fact that we can still sum this up by saying we're not able to currently catch Spurs because of the result, just be thankful still that we're there. That's still good.
Yeah, I think that was pretty much what I was going to say as well. It's a bad day at the office, but like Josh said, we got 15, 16 more games now at the moment. So we are where we are. We'll push on. It could be a lot worse. You could be Graham Potter.
One last stab.
just keep going. Just keep stabbing the poor guy. There's going to be an interesting run of games as well throughout March and April. We're going to have three. We're well placed to have 3 back-to-back at the Amex. If there's ever a time to turn that back into a fortress and get some good results, the end of March, beginning of April could really dictate what the final third of our season looks like with those back-to-back home games. And they're not exactly tough ones. Palace, United, and Brentford, all of them are very winnable. It's not like we've got Manchester City coming to visit. So
away at Spurs, away at Chelsea, and home at Man City after that, and then away at Forest, which appears to currently be one of the toughest bloody places you can play. So I'm not looking forward to April. I am not. Hopefully, we don't look like fools.
Yeah. All right, fellas, have a wonderful 10 days, and we'll speak again after Stoke.
Thanks all.
Thank you.